the first thing to talk about is why firms talk so much about customer satisfaction. And the reason is because it's one of the most powerful predictors of repurchase behavior. In some ways, it's the essence of the business, the profitable satisfaction of customers' needs. So companies want to know not just how much they're satisfying their customers, but what's causing it. And there's a few big ones. Most obviously, there is the consumer's reactions to the product or service itself. But there are other factors as well. One of them, of course, is the service that accompanies the delivery of the core product or service, whatever it might be. The price, it turns out, actually ends up having a pretty big impact on customer satisfaction, as does their perceptions of equity or fairness. So in other words, did they feel like they were getting out of the purchase what they should relative to the organization? The final one I would mention is that customers' expectations are negatively related to satisfaction. As customers' expectations get higher and higher, it is harder and harder to satisfy them. And in fact, if you hold everything constant as their expectations go up, you might even start to dissatisfy them. If organizations focus primarily on exceeding customers' expectations, they may not always be getting it right. If expectations are not negatively related to satisfaction, that's not the right course of action. The research seems to suggest that once you've met expectations, going beyond them doesn't provide much payback, especially when you look at loyalty data, repurchase data. Most of the benefit comes from meeting expectations. Two things I tend to highlight that are important causes of satisfaction. One of them is that their customers want to fulfill their needs in a really easy way, and inadvertently organizations will often put up barriers, make it a little bit difficult for customers. They're not trying to, but they have organizational reasons for having some of those barriers. They might have silos within the organization. They might think they're being friendly. When it comes to the service encounter, the way we intuitively hold in mind that you would exceed customers' expectations is by being extra friendly. And what we found is that attempts by firms to truly be friendly, which, by the way, they do all the time, they're integrated into many of their scripts, into their communications, that actually turned people off. The only time friendliness really seemed to work was when customers already had a friendship with the organization. And what we concluded was friendliness works in friendships. Friendliness does not work when you're trying to create a friendship. And if you think about it sort of intuitively in your interpersonal relationships, you act very differently at the early stages of a friendship than you do at the latter stages. And that's exactly what's going on, is that consumers really expected organizations to act more like you would at the very early stages of a friendship, where you don't really know each other very well, than they did at the later stages. And if you act very friendly in the early stages, you're actually violating interpersonal norms, and it makes people a little bit uncomfortable. Respect is another one of those somewhat invisible causes of satisfaction. Actually, second only to their reactions to the product or service, whatever the core thing was they were buying. Respect really captures this feeling that others value us, that we are a person of worth. That's the million-dollar question, I think. What causes people to infer that they are respected versus not respected? I have lots of examples of the kinds of things organizations do, perhaps inadvertently, that convey disrespect. One of the things that I would say repeatedly comes up, and I've seen it in my own research as well, is feeling as though you are being ignored in a customer service environment. So if you go to a store and there's someone, frontline worker behind the counter, if there is an indication that maybe they're focusing on something else, it turns out people are very sensitive to that. My best advice is to establish a checklist of the things you want to achieve. First, do whatever your core product or core service is well. Don't focus on exceeding customers' expectations, but make sure you can do exactly what customers want you to do. In other words, meet their expectations. The second thing on the checklist would be make it easy for customers to achieve those goals. The final thing I would put on my checklist is do so in a manner that conveys you respect and value them, or at least remove those things you might be doing that inadvertently convey a lack of respect.